thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many friends in the audience. I hope there's some strangers as well, but it's a delight to see so many people here. As Hannah said, I'm chairman of trustees of the Women Golfers Museum. And you might say, what is it? What's in it? Where is it? And when can I see it? Well, I hope this talk will answer these questions. It will also take the form of a show and tell, as after all, exhibits are the reason for having the museum in the first place. If anyone wants to stop me and ask any questions, that would be fine actually during my talk, because this talk jumps about a bit and it's not easy to go back. So please jump in if you want a fuller explanation about anything or want to add any comments yourself. Hannah's very kindly brought some objects from the storage facilities that we've got here for me to show you, and others are out on display in the galleries downstairs. And I hope, can they go and look afterwards? Is that a possibility? Or maybe come back and look later on?
If you don't mind.
Yes, sorry. Okay, come back and look at them later on, but I've got photographs of everything I'm going to talk about. Right. Now, the Women Golfers Museum started in 1938 with a guest speaker at the Veteran Ladies Golf Association dinner, and this is what the Veteran Ladies Golf Association looked like just before the Second World War. So many people there in London. Amazing. And one of the speakers is standing up at the front. But anyway, a guest speaker suggested that the establishment of a museum for the purpose of collecting and exhibiting objects relating to the origin and growth of women's golf. First of all, I need to tell you all about three very important people who were in at the start. And this, I think a lot of ladies will know, is Suzette Pearson, who was, her dates were 1861 to 1941. She was one of the founders of the Ladies Golf Union, and some might say the founder of the LGU. She was the driving force which got ladies golf started. She was a great organiser. Long before any of the men's unions and associations started, the LGU started. She was the first honorary secretary from 1893 to 1919 and a member of Royal Wimbledon Ladies Golf Club. She was a good golfer in her own right, and she reached the final of two ladies' championships, being beaten by Lady Margaret Scott both times. Clubs were invited to sign up for the Ladies Golf Union, and their members could have an LGU handicap. And the LGU were the first organisation to ever have a handicap system. I have this slide of William Laidlaw Purvis, who was a member of Wimbledon and founded Littleston and Royal St George's golf clubs and chaired the first meeting of the LGU. He had tried to get a men's union organised, but it failed. Along with his EP, they introduced a handicapping system based on the averaging of best scores and scratch score in the course. And this system was adopted by many organisations throughout the world and lasted for over 100 years. And I have here the first draft of that handicapping system, which is part of our collection. It's actually held in the Special Collections Unit of St Andrews University Library. The second very important person was Mabel Stringer, who dates 1868 to 1958. She was Isette Pearson's right-hand woman. Assistant Secretary to Isette for many years. She was a member of Littleston. She played for Kent. Latterly a golf journalist and columnist for many papers and magazines, including The Gentlewoman, Eve and The Bystander. She was affectionately known as Auntie Mabel. I have here her book, Golfing Reminiscences. This is the Bible, the go-to Bible of early ladies golf. A wonderful book. Isette and Mabel were firm friends, and between them they ran women's golf until the start of the First World War. Isette ran the championships, the international matches, and started county golf, as well as corresponding with clubs and keeping the finances. Mabel was good at starting things. She started many organisations and societies, some of which are still going today, including the Parliamentary, the Legal, the United Services, the Veterans, the Girls, and the Vesta Golfing Society. Our third VIP is a generation younger, Cecilia Leach, always called Cecil. Her date's 1891 to 1977, so a whole generation younger, who was British champion 4 times, both before and after the First World War. She was one of the best golfers in the country has ever seen, and she was also a great organiser. It was Cecil who was that guest speaker at the Veteran Ladies' Dinner in 1938. She was too young to be a vet, so she was there as a speaker, who suggested that a Women Golfers Museum should be started. Many women who play golf don't think for a moment about the past history of the game, the pioneers who had to fight prejudice and bias to start the many associations, clubs, championships, matches and events which we currently enjoy. Women golfers everywhere owe a huge debt of gratitude to these 3 women who started so many things that we take for granted nowadays. This is a slide it's a scan of an article in Fairley and Hazard, which talks about when Cecil was the guest speaker. She said, something certainly ought to be started now before valuable relics of the game were lost. And I know this is going slightly off the tangent, but this was on the same page as that quote I scanned, and I just couldn't resist it. The unmarrieds versus the Cambridge outlaws. You'll see why I'm showing it to you later on in the talk, so pay attention. A flyer went out to the clubs. The first committee had as its president Lisette Pearson. The first chairman was Mabel Stringer. And Mabel's enthusiasm would certainly have driven the scheme forward. There would be no doubt about its success with her at the helm. Cecil Leach, as well as several other well-known women golfers, including Doris Chambers, made up the committee. And these ladies and their friends donated antique golf clubs, golf balls, badges, trophies, books, photographs, and other ephemera to the museum. Mr. Hornsby, who was the manager of the Whitehall Court, offered the Women Golfers Museum its first home at the Lady Golfers Club, which was on number 3 Whitehall Court in Westminster in London. In those days, the Lady Golfers Club was a home from home for many lady golfers, many women golfers, particularly those visiting from overseas or the continent. And the LGU also had offices in a symposium building in Whitehall Court. The museum was opened by Lady Carisbrooke on the 28th of April 1939, with over 100 attending. As you can see from this cutting with Doris Chambers, she was examining some of the exhibits. We started with a good range of clubs. And as well as that, this was also scanned in this lovely photograph of some people wearing costume walking along the street outside, including Gloria Monopole's outfit on the left-hand side, and the second from the right, somebody wearing Mabel Stringer's outfit. We're going to talk about that later on. But we had a fantastic range of costume as well. And also we had a lot of figures of the, sorry, I'm way ahead of myself. So one of the things the museum was famous for were these statuettes of famous players, which ranged from Lady Margaret Scott, who won the First Ladies' Championship in 1893, through to the 1980s. And any student of fashion, of golfing fashion, would have a wonderful time examining these changes in costume in these photographic statuettes. And I believe the museum here still has the statuettes. I don't think they've ever been on display because they're a bit tatty. but it is a great, it's one every year, obviously, the winner, and so you get a change in swings and a change in costume. I've got to apologise for this dreadful image. It's a photocopy of me, but it gives you some idea what a vast range of items we had early on. And also the Mabel Stringer costume, once again, that was there right at the start. I'm lucky to have the minute book of the Women Golfers Museum along with a list of the early acquisitions, so it's great to know what came when. One of the earliest and perhaps the most valuable item in our collection is this fine example of an Alan Robertson ball, which was donated at the start by Lady Duff, who also donated a Tom Morris feather ball. And both these balls are on display. The Alan Robertson ball is downstairs in the gallery, and the Tom Morris ball, I believe, is on display in Martin Slumber's office across the road. Many of the early donations are still our most valuable. The clubs that Doris Chambers were holding, these clubs were once in front of Doris Chambers when she opened the museum. The Crescent Iron, Long-Nose Wood, Centre-Shafted Driver, Early Putter, a Cleek, Applewood Driver made by Willie Park, etc. As you can see, Doris has got them there. Doris is holding in her hand a South African club made by a caddy, which she collected during a golfing tour in South Africa, and she donated it to the museum. I think it's made of a piece of wood that was bent at the kind of club end so that they looked like a golf club. One very interesting ball which is here tonight, I should have white gloves on to pick this up. But this ball here, very interesting ball. It's a Bramble patterned lion ball. This ball was used by Cecilia Leach in her epic match versus Harold Hilton in 1910. It was a challenge match to be played over, sorry, move it forward so you can see the ball. It was a challenge match to be played over 72 holes, 36 holes at Walton Heath and 36 at Sunningdale. Now Harold Hilton had twice won the Open Championship as an amateur, and had also won the amateur, and Cecil was to win 4 British Ladies Amateur Championships, 5 French and 1 Canadian. They were respectively the Tiger Woods and Annika Sorenstam of their day. To quote Phil Pilley, who wrote The Centenary History of Walton Heath, in the days when amateurism was all, Hilton was a sporting superhero. Leach was a pioneer where feminism was in its first stirrings. The suffragettes were a year or two away. The challenge came about when Hilton estimated the difference between a male and female champion was about 9 strokes around when playing off the men's tees, and he reckoned on winning when conceding a stroke every other hole. That was enough for Leach, for Cecil, later to be called the first of the Amazons. She accepted the conditions, and on the due date, according to Golf Illustrated, some 4,000 people swarmed all over Walton Heath. They were, said the magazine, ignorant and unruly, and sure enough, Leach hit a pram on the very first hole. But she was a very good player, no mere token. She had a wide stance, what was called a hard, fast rhythm, and was the first woman to hit the ball hard rather than just sweep it away. Indeed, so hard that Bernard Darwin, the man from the Times, recorded that she hit the ball with a splendid, firm snap, and was able to make the ball bite with fizz and stop. That is beyond many women golfers even today, and it was not long before Hilton realised he was in a match. At the end of the first day, Cecil missed a 4-foot putt on the 36th green that would have seen them all square. 2 days later at Sunningdale offered rain and strong winds, conditions not ordinarily conducive for women, and Leach was 5 down with only 15 to play before she rallied. In fact, she rallied to such an effect that she won 7 of the next 9 holes And before Hilton knew what had happened, he was shaking hands on the 35th green, a loser by 2-1. I was beaten fair and square, he said. I bet. Someone calculated the number of shots difference in the two scores, and taking into account the concessions, remember it was a stroke every other hole, they came up with a figure of 36. That, of course, is exactly what Hilton had calculated. 4 rounds at 9 strokes a round, and probably enough to mollify wounded male pride. Now, I'm showing you this outfit here. Also on display downstairs was the costume worn by Mabel Stringer in 1894 when the Ladies' Championship was at Littlestone. A red jacket with Littlestone Ladies Golf Club buttons, a straw broocher with a club ribbon, a brooch badge, a white and red striped silk shirt, a stiff collar, maybe 4 inches in depth. Imagine playing golf with that. A red tie with another brooch, a white webbing belt, and black and white check cloth skirt. And of course, the boots. This is now a display downstairs. Next to the outfit on this slide is the Miss Higgins belt, which was worn loosely around the waist and could be slid down to keep the folds of the skirt from fluttering in the breeze when the player wanted to take a shot. Thought of everything in those days. Also on display downstairs is the costume worn by Gloria Monopole. She was famous for being the first woman to wear trousers in the national championship. She also played with only one club, a clique. Her chauffeur and caddy carried an identical club in case the first one broke. Her last minute arrival from a Rolls Royce, here she is, actually playing golf. Her last minute arrival from a Rolls Royce onto the first tee at Westward Ho caused consternation in 1933, and the LGU chairman issued a statement in which she deplored any change from the traditional golfing attire. Imagine, everybody in those days wore skirts. She went on to play in 6 championships, always wearing trousers and always just using one club, a clique. She had a good swing, she was a good golfer, and occasionally she won a match, but no one seems to know why she only played with one club. In Cecilia Leach's unpublished autobiography, she said, "I request that this outfit, together with the one and only club which she used on that occasion, be donated to the museum," was immediately and graciously granted. Also in our collection, which is once again downstairs, is this very early ladies' silver medal. It was awarded by the Musselburgh Ladies Golf Club to Miss Maggie Wakelin in 1873. So please go look at that one. But another piece of jewellery is this one here. This is the Barnhurst Bracelet. Angela, who's in the audience, might remember it. I don't know. It's a beautiful and valuable piece of jewellery. 12 gold shields with the main shield surrounded by rubies and diamonds. It was played for annually at Barnhurst Golf Club in 1910. From 1910. It was given by Mrs. Gray, for whom her husband had built Barnhurst Golf Club in Kent. His wife, who was a golfer, could not join his club, so he commissioned James Braid in 1903 to design a golf course as a gift for his wife. It was one of the first clubs where men and women were completely equal, the same rights of membership, equal use of the links, and similar access to the clubhouse. Some might say it took another 100 years before this became the norm. That's another photograph of Whitehall Court. What an imposing building. It's on the banks of the Thames. In those days we had enough items, enough objects to fill a room at the Lady Golfers Club, but you will have noticed the date, 1939. And the museum, it was in April, the museum was opened in April 1939. During the war, the collection was put into storage in a cupboard in Whitehall Court, where it survived intact. And I think it's amazing that building is survived intact. Izetta died in 1941, and after the facilities, the museum opened again with Auntie Mabel as president, Cecil Leach as the chairman, and a newly elected committee. In 1961, a trust was formed to administer the museum, consisting of 3 trustees, Cecil Leach, Mrs. Holloway, and Mrs. Spence. In that same year, the Lady Golfers Club amalgamated with the Golfers Club, and so the museum moved next door into number 2A Whitehall Court. In 1968, the museum was asked to vacate the Golfers Club, and the collection moved around various London clubs, including the 19th and the Devonshire, before finding a home in the offices of Colgate Palmolive Company in Oxford Street. And this is the flyer. Why not combine a visit with your next shopping spree? Colgate were great sponsors of ladies' golf at that time. The trustees were relieved to have found a permanent home where members of the public could view the collection without restrictions, because of course when it was in these London clubs, you had to be a member of the club to actually be able to see it. Cecil Leach said at the opening, "It's always been my wish to make the museum available to the widest number of people." But unfortunately, it turned out that it was only open by appointment in writing, and hardly anyone visited. We have photos of what it was like, and I'll just go through them quite slowly. But as you can see, we had a lot of stuff. It filled a huge room. You can see there the figures for the different championships. They produced a magnificent brochure, and I have one here. And if anybody would like one, I still have a huge box full of these brochures, because as I say, hardly anybody went. But it's a lovely brochure with some great photographs of some of our collection. For instance, we have a ball press here and some very interesting golf balls. The next one, trophy, the Barnhurst Bracelet in its case, and another trophy behind it. We had lots of trophies when places closed down. They gave our trophies to give out. The trophy was full, or perhaps it was too valuable. They gave it to the museum. And we also have a lot of albums, photograph albums, scrapbooks, books, old records, lots of things we had there. So these are all in this, and if anybody wants one, just come at the end and take one. Not long after the opening, Cecil Leach died, and her niece Maureen Miller became the chairman of trustees. In 1981, once again, they had notice to quit. Colgates were moving from Oxford Street because the rent was too high. There was some talk of the collection being loaned abroad, but the trustees stepped in and arranged for it to go to the National Museum of Antiquities in Edinburgh, where it was on display from 1981 to 1984. So this is the invitation. It was to be opened by Belle Robertson. This is a photograph of Belle showing Janet Siegel. Janet Siegel was the USGA historian, showing Janet Siegel around our collection when it was in the Museum of Antiquities in Edinburgh. The National Museum of Antiquities, it just sounds like a disaster really, this National Museum of Antiquities merged with the National Museum of Scotland, and once again our items were in storage. Yes, once again we were looking for a home. And then there was a talk of a museum opening in St Andrews. Numerous letters were exchanged between the chairman of the trustees, Maureen Miller, and the new director of the British Golf Museum, Peter Lewis. Yes, they would like our collection A loan agreement was drawn up and signed. All this time, things were still being donated to us. We had over 500, 600 artifacts and over 400 books by this time. The books stayed in Edinburgh, and the artifacts were delivered to St Andrews, closely supervised by our chairman, Maureen Miller. In the early days of the British Golf Museum, I think I can safely say that our collection made up a substantial part of what was went out on display. I have some photographs of the British Golf Museum when it was newly built. I thought it would quite amuse you to see what it looked like before. It doesn't look like this now. A big wall right in front of the
very well
very well and two horrible blue rubbish bins right outside. And a big now open. It looks like a Lego house, really, doesn't it? And of course, the new stone also made it. These steps aren't there anymore, and that the whole lot of bits around there. This is one of our displays, which was in the British Golf Museum very early on. Once again, Mabel Stringer's outfit with the belt round her knees, with and Miss Higgins' belt round her knees, and also at the back, at the side, Gloria Monopole's outfit. And some of the trophies that we have in our collection went on display, and some of the medals and smaller mementos. And then we have a huge tie collection and also hat bands, because in the very early days, women were so proud of being members of a club that they would wear a tie with they would design a tie. Often it had yellow in it because they're yellow from the bunkers, green for the grass and the fairies, yellow from the bunkers, that sort of thing. So there's quite a few. And hat bands, and a few buttons and things like that we have as well. And this is the invitation to the opening of the British Golf Museum. And if you notice, it was opened by the Right Honourable the Viscount Bramble, CHMC. And if you remember way back at the beginning of the talk, I showed you this photograph. Well, the one that's circled, that is Willie Whitehall. And I just thought it was so appropriate that for the start of the Golf Museum, just on that page, and there he was opening the British Golf Museum in 1990. Going back to the albums, our paper items, that's all the books, the photograph albums, the scrolls, the pictures, all our other ephemera, has also gone on a very circuitous route to St Andrews. And after several years in the Royal Scottish Museum in Chambers Street, it's now in the safekeeping of the Special Collections Unit of St Andrews University Library. First of all, you think it's an innocuous little cup. This is the Blue Pencil Trophy, and it was played for by the golfing members of the Postal Censorship Staff during World War II. Wonderful. I asked for a selection of the ties to be brought up, lovely silk ties with lots of different colours in them. Women were so proud of wearing the tie of their organisation, their team, their club. It was, and also very proud to wear all the medals and badges as they won. That's the pencil trophy with ties. This one. This, once again, quite an innocuous looking club, but this was found behind a water tank in the attic of a house in North Berwick, along with another club, another iron club, a putter and a wood. And the plumber who found it knew that I was a collector and brought it to me. And I paid him £60 for these 4 clubs. And I paid £60 because on the club are the initials ECO. And ECO is Edith Orr. And Edith Orr won the British Ladies' Championship at Gillian in 1897. And it's now part of the collection here in St Andrews. But it's wonderful to think that she actually held this club, and we get another chance to hold it. Something Very special. I'll just have a Edith or the Orr sisters were. I was telling someone earlier on, the Scottish people hardly ever entered the British Ladies' Championship at the very early stage. There was maybe only one in 1895 and then about 2 or 3 in 1896. But in 1897 they brought the championship to Scotland, and about, I think, 38 Scottish ladies entered it. Well, it turned out that they always were worried about the Scots because we were kind of hiding behind the border, and the English people just wondered what we got up to. Well, it turned out that in the last 8, 7 of them were Scottish. So it just shows you the standard that we had in Scotland. And in the final, Edith Orr, who was the winner, played her older sister Theodora Orr in the final. And that was the only time they ever played in the championship. Their father took offence because the caddies and the people watching were betting on their daughters on who would win, and he didn't like that, and so they never got a chance to defend the title and play again. The next one, I'm just got a photograph of this because this is out in the display downstairs. This is our most recent acquisition, and this year the British Girls celebrated the centenary. There's a lovely display downstairs in the gallery commemorating the event. In the first 7 years of the championship, the girls played for the Princess Mary Trophy, and when running the event was taken over by the bystander, the original trophy was given to Mabel Stringer. This is the original trophy. It was given to Mabel Stringer to keep as a memento, and she donated it to the Women Golfers Museum. But unfortunately, it was stolen in 1973 when the collection was housed in the Devonshire Club. Now, the RNA commissioned a booklet. They commissioned a booklet for the British Girls' Championship because it held its centenary this year at Panmure. And I was helping gather resources for the publication. And one of the museum staff, Kieran, who's here with the camera, he spotted this Princess Mary trophy with a plaque that said Girls' Championship on the internet in an auction, but unfortunately the auction had passed and finished. I got onto the auction house and explained I thought it was our stolen trophy, and they asked and I also asked who had sold it, and more importantly, who had bought it. And they told me who had bought it, an antique dealer, and I was able to arrange to buy it back from him. When it arrived in the post, the box seemed very small. It was about this by that, and I was expecting something like that. And on opening it, it turned out that it was a miniature of the original trophy, probably given as a memento to the winner. I had to apologise to the auction house as I'd accused them of selling stolen goods. Since the British Golf Museum also acquired the Ladies' Golf Union collection, which was after the merger with the LGU in 2017, women's golf has taken a much higher profile within the museum, and the cabinets of women's golf history are frequently on display. Our clubs and balls are also out in the general display attributed to the Women Golfers Museum. Next thing I'm going to do, I intend to show you the website. This is our website. One of the problems of having our collection with our collection is it's not well publicised, and anyone doing research often does not know of its existence, and even when they do know its existence, they don't know what's there. And we have a website. It's www.womengolfersmuseum.com. And I was hoping that I could show you some of the pages here, but we can't seem to get it to work at the same time as doing this. So I'm hoping that my red button will, because if you do go on the website, the Women Golfers collection, these are all kind of pulled down pages that you can look at. And the Women Golfers collection will actually list everything that we have, all the items, and within the photograph albums we have got some of them digitized, and we can actually list out who's in the photographs in the photograph album. So if you're looking for a photograph of a specific person, you can actually probably find it.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Julie? I would just like to see how much work that website has involved, and all of it is done by Gillian.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So hi. You might put me off it. I've also tried to, on the website, yes, it's a winter thing, you know, I just keep trying to put it up more and more information. As well as books, as well as that, I've been trying to list other collections. I have a big bibliography page, which I've tried to list every ladies' golf book that there ever was or has ever been published. The famous golfers section is an A to Z of people, at which I started off with golfers' handbooks, and I've been typing in all the women that I find in the very early golfers' handbooks. I'm up to 1952 at the moment, so it's a bit of a labour of love as well. As I say, it's a winter activity. Events is like a timeline of when championships started, when important things in women's golf started too, the handicapping system came in, county golf started, all these sorts of things. And Curtis Cup started in 32 and that sort of thing. So events for that. The trustees. This is trustees. We've now got 7 trustees in our trust. I'm chairman. Eve, who's here, is one of the trustees. Diane Bailey, Christine Watson, John Pearson, who gave a talk earlier on this year. Bridget Jackson. Probably that's much. Yeah. So it's pretty good. We've got a really good. Some really interesting people who are trustees and who all care very much about women's golf history. The next thing is links. But often, if you're looking for us, as you can see, we're collecting information from lots of different sources, and I've put my email address and John Pearson's email address, because John is Secretary of Trustees, on the website. So please, if you are interested, go to that website.